By the way, we may not be able to make it snow in Africa. We can't take snow there, but we can take you. And I mean that. So come with us in June. It's going to be an incredible 2 weeks of traveling the country, holding outreach events, sharing the message of Jesus Christ. Well, this Christmas, I hope you've noticed that our theme is Embrace the King. We've been talking about this idea of embrace this Christmas, and tonight we're talking about Embrace the King. And I think there's a lot of things in our life that can consume our lives. Tonight, I want to challenge you this Christmas to embrace Christ more than anything else. So let's look at our text. Our text is from Matthew chapter 2, where we read about the King coming, all right? After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judah, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard that he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him, when he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people. He'll be the King of Israel." And so Herod, you hear Herod here asking about the king. You know the story well, asking about the Messiah. The truth is, Herod wants no part of embracing this new king of the Jews. He doesn't want to worship him. He wants to get rid of him. And I think for all of us at Christmas, I would ask you this Christmas, what have you embraced most? When you think about your family, because what will fill your home most? Will it be Jesus Christ or will it be other things? On Christmas Eve, we light our Christ candle. And there's 5 candles of Advent, and on Christmas Eve, we finally light the Christ candle. I don't know if you know this, but around the world for centuries, when the Christ candle is lit, in many places of worship, in many cathedrals, the Christ candle is left burning the rest of the year. And because the Christ candle represents and reminds us all that Christ is in this place. When the candle is burning, it means Christ is here. If the candle goes out in one of these places of worship, the ones who mean to keep it burning all year long, it means Christ is not in this place. When new clergy are hired and brought in, they tell him, you've got one job, keep the candle burning. You got one job. It's like you're carrying the Olympic torch. Don't let it go out, whatever you do. And so this Christmas, as we talk about this, I wonder if Christ is burning bright in your home this Christmas. Because I think in all of our homes and all of our lives, either he's there and everyone can see it or he's not. You walk into some people's homes and you see that Christ is burning bright. But have you ever walked into some of your friends or a family's home and you see no signs of Christ? There are some homes that are like that. You walk in and you see there's no Christ in the words that are being spoken. It's words of anger and harm instead of blessing. There's no Christ in the way their time is spent, or in the money, in the way they spend their money. There's no Christ in their work. You don't see Christ because there's no place for prayer in this home. There's no Bible to read. There's no Christ there. I don't know if you've been in a home like that, but it's very clear quickly that there's no Christ in many homes. My wife Veronica and I, some years ago, were invited to a wedding on the other side of the country, and it was a family, part of our family's wedding, and they said, hey, we have friends that you can stay with. They have a mansion. It's a big house. You'll love it. So we arrive. We fly there. We arrive in the afternoon, and we get to the house, and it's a big house on the outside. We get to the front door, though, and there's a note. We're not home right now, so just come in and make yourself at home. Your bedroom's upstairs on the left. And so We come into these strangers' home, and stepping in, it was a strange experience because we stepped through the door, and they had told us this guy designed movie sets for a living. Well, we walk in, and he had turned his entire home. He had it modeled into an Egyptian tomb, okay? And we felt like we had just stepped into the Raiders of the Lost Ark. There were mummies, there were caskets, there were hieroglyphics on the walls, there were big stone caves and temples, and it didn't feel like a mansion. It may have been. It felt like a haunted mansion. It was like a crypt or a mausoleum. And so we're like, oh my goodness. So we make our way up to our room, and we feel like, man, how are we going to sleep tonight? This place is haunted. And we make our way up to our room, and we wait all through the afternoon. It's getting dark. The people still don't come home. Finally, we go to bed. We never meet our host. But then at about midnight, I hear doors slamming and people shouting. And then I hear cursing and yelling, and they're swearing at each other. I'm like, what's going on? And it sounds like it's going to get violent. So I go out of my room, and I come up on this banister looking down at this big foyer downstairs. And I see a man shouting and yelling at a woman, and it's getting really loud. And I think he's about to hit her. So I yell, hey, enough. I never met these people before. But I yell, hey, enough. It's time to go to bed. And so they scatter like cockroaches when you turn the light on. And so I go back to my bedroom. You know, you're pastor. You got to take charge when things aren't right. I just say, all right, I don't know about you. You would have done the same thing. And so I go back to our bedroom, and Veronica says, we got to leave now. I said, leave now. She says, they're going to kill us tonight. You can't yell at people in their house. You just yell at them. I said, well, it was getting violent down there, I think. She said, we got to go. I said, where are we going to go at midnight? She said, the Hampton Inn down the street. I saw Hampton Inn. I said, that's $89. We're staying till daylight. So we stuck it out. You know, we wedged things up against the door. We didn't think we were going to make it. At sunrise, we were gone. There's a life lesson here. You know what it is. When you go to a family's wedding at a state, don't be cheap. Pay the $89 for the Hampton Inn. And avoid the mausoleum. And, you know, but aren't some people's homes like that? You walk in, and it's dark as a crypt because Christ is not there. There's no light of Christ in the place. But aren't there some homes, and I hope your home is like this, but aren't there some homes when you walk in, you can see the light of Christ shining bright? You hear Christ in the words that are being spoken as the family praises each other. They're words of kindness and peace and grace. You see Christ on the refrigerator door where there's a picture of an orphan that they sponsor. You hear Christ in the blessing that's said before the mealtime. You see Christ in the well-worn Bible. You hear Christ in the prayers that are prayed at night with the children at bedtime. Christ is in that place. Some homes are like that. I hope your home is like that this Christmas, that Christ is burning bright in your home. When I think of homes like that, I think of my own grandmother's house. Most of you at the Grove know that I grew up in the rainforest in West Africa, and every 3 or 4 years would come back to America. And I could not wait to get to my Gram's house in San Jose. She had a swimming pool, and her home was always a place of peace and love and roast beef. There's always roast beef cooking. It smelled like roast beef. And I couldn't wait to get there. And in my grandmother's house, I never heard her raise her voice in anger. I never heard a swear word in my grandmother's house. I never saw a drop of alcohol in my Gram's house. Every Wednesday night, her house crowded with teenagers and high schoolers because Young Life met in her living room. Until she was 99 years old, her house filled up with teenagers for Young Life. When my twin brother and I were in college, we would go from LA up to San Jose to spend the summer with her, and every night she would make us stay up late till like 8:30, and we would watch the Lawrence Welk show. Some of you seen this? Remember that? We watched Lawrence Welk, and then we'd end the night with a big giant bowl of vanilla ice cream with chopped strawberries on top. I loved my grandmother's house. It was a piece of heaven on earth. At 99, we had my grandmother's last birthday, and someone asked her, Graham, how can we live to be 99? She said, read your Bible and ride your bike. You know, stay in shape and read your Bible, and you'll make it. My grandmother's house was a place where the light of Christ shined bright. I hope this Christmas your home is like that. So today I want to give you a Christmas challenge, and it's very simple. Make Jesus Christ the blazing center of your home. Make Jesus Christ the brightest thing that shines in your home this year. I want to read you what Jesus says about this in Matthew chapter 4, and he's quoting Isaiah. He says, the people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. I think, as I say, make Jesus Christ the blazing center of your life and your home. Let's be honest. There's a lot of things in our lives that start to shine brighter than Jesus Christ. And my challenge this Christmas is to make your home and your life more about Jesus Christ than anything else. Because some other things can shine. They're not bad things all the time. For example, maybe you shine on TikTok and Instagram, but the light of Christ has become dim. Maybe you shine at work. Your sales numbers are off the charts, but the light of Christ has grown dim. Maybe you shine on the golf course. You can hit a golf ball a country mile, your friends say, but the light of Christ is not shining so bright in your life. Maybe you shine in academics. Maybe you're getting straight A's, or in college you're 4.0, but the light of Christ has grown dim. I want to challenge you this Christmas, this year, to let Christ shine more brightly in your life than any of those other things. I think the trouble is there's not just things that shine brighter than Christ. There's some things in our lives that start to put the light of Christ out, snuff it out, extinguish it. Maybe it's a person. Maybe you've been in a toxic relationship that is snuffing out the light of Christ. Maybe you don't need those kinds of friends in your life anymore. Maybe there's a destructive habit that's turned into an addiction, and it's snuffed out the light of Christ. Maybe it's a secret, a deception, a lie, a dishonesty, and the light of Christ, people can't even see it in your life anymore. And so I invite you this Christmas to make Jesus Christ the blazing center of your life. How do we do that? How do we make Jesus Christ the blazing center of our life and our homes? I want to take this light of Christ, and we're going to ask you to do this later in just a minute. But I want to take this light from the Christ candle, and I want this candle to represent your home. And I want to invite you today, and I'll ask you to get out of your seat in just a few minutes. But as I light this, the challenge for all of us is to keep the light of Christ burning bright in our homes. How do we do that? I think the challenge for us is to start setting the standard for the words that are spoken in your home. Are the words spoken in your home words of kindness and grace and peace and love? When you use those words, those kinds of words, the light of Christ shines bright. In your home, are you leading your family to worship Jesus Christ? You want the light of Christ to shine bright? Then lead your family to worship. Come here and join us on Sundays. We're meeting again in 2 days at 9:15 and 10:45. Come back and join us. Lead your family in worshiping Christ at home. Are you reading the Bible together? Are you praying together? When you go to work, let Christ shine through your work ethic, the way you bust it more than anybody else. Let Christ shine through your integrity. And people see Christ through how you encourage your coworkers when others are only discouraging. Let the light of Christ shine through your passions and how you spend your time and your money. By the way, are your children, do they know that you spend less in your home so that you can live more generously and give more away? When you serve God through your acts of kindness and compassion and mercy, do you invite your kids to come with you so they can see the light of Christ blazing in your home and in your family and your life? When I say that, I think about a woman, a friend of our family's that was at the Grove a few years ago. And she and her college daughter were here, and then her husband passed away from cancer. And it was almost a year when the next Christmas came around, and she told my wife, Veronica, she said, I know what it feels like now to be a single mother. She said, at Christmas this year, are there any single mothers that I could help? Because I've been blessed, and I want to help somebody else this Christmas. And so my wife, Veronica, said, yes, in fact, there's a young single mom here in her early 20s that just moved here from out of state. She has a 3-year-old daughter. She's between jobs. She can barely pay her rent. She said, I know she doesn't have money for Christmas presents this year. So this woman, this friend of ours and her college daughter, they went shopping, And they bought a bunch of presents, wrapped them up. Then they went to this young single mother's home. And first they gave her a gift card. They say, why don't you go out? It was for a mani-pedi. Go get a mani-pedi, and we're going to decorate your apartment for Christmas. And they kept her 3-year-old daughter with them. And they brought in a live Christmas tree. They wrapped it with lights. The 3-year-old helped him put ornaments on the tree, and then they stuffed presents underneath. And I share that only to say that when a mother and her daughter, a single mother and her daughter, go and bless another young single mother and her daughter at Christmas time, the light of Christ is shining bright. And I want to say this next this Christmas. When the light of Christ is blazing in your life and in your family, then it also will shine on the world. When the world can't help but see Jesus Christ in your life, then it points them to God. That's what Jesus says. So I want to go back to Matthew, and in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus says, don't hide your light. Let it shine brightly before others, so that your good works will shine light upon them. But then he doesn't stop here. He says something really important. This is why it's important to live this way. He says, and then they will give praise to your Father in heaven. You see what Jesus is saying? That when you shine, then it shows people what following God is like. That your light, the light of your life, it shines not just out to show people Christ, but it changes the lives of others out there. Jesus was teaching once, and we read this in Matthew also. He has a few of his disciples on a hillside, and he says to them, he says, don't put your light under a bucket, under a basket. He says, you are the light of the world. Now he's looking, you got to picture the group of individuals he's looking at. They're a bunch of poor, humble, broke, uneducated, smelly fishermen. And he says, you are the light of the world. It seems audacious. It seems impossible. He says, you are the hope of the world. You are my light to go out there. These guys, it seems improbable. But no, they do. And he's not just speaking to them saying, you are the light of the world. He's speaking to you. He's saying that to you, that you are the light of the world as well. That when you go out and shine, the world sees Christ as well. Have you ever known someone who's come into your workplace, into your family, a person who's come into your circle of friends, and they shine so bright for Jesus Christ, no one can miss that they love God? Have you known a few of those people? They're like a shooting star. They're like the star over Bethlehem that comes through, and they shine so bright. I knew an individual like that. His name was Bob. I got to know Bob in Africa. So when we were living in the rainforest way back in the day, my dad would get invited to go preach in villages, and sometimes he would walk 3, 4, 5 hours to preach. And once in a while, he would take a cassette recorder with him. Anybody remember cassette tapes? A few of you, like 4 of us here in the room. And he would take a cassette recorder and he'd record himself walking the trail. He's out of breath going, all right, we're coming up on a swamp. We're going across a monkey bridge. Now we're getting in a dugout canoe. And then he gets to the village and he records the people singing in the Sapo language. And then that cassette tape he would send back to America, and he had someone who would mail it out across the country to all their friends and supporters. It's kind of like today, that'd be like dropping a podcast, all right? That's what you do. So he would send this out, and then this guy named Bob gets the cassette, and he hears my dad huffing and puffing, trekking through the jungle to preach. And he writes my dad, and he says, I'm an insurance salesman in San Jose, and I heard your trek through the jungle to preach. He said, I want to walk that trail with you, and I want to hear you preach, and I want to hear the people sing in that village. So my dad says, well, then come on out. So Bob, the insurance salesman from San Jose, flies to Africa, and they walk to that village, and he preaches there. And then when my father and my mother open African Bible colleges, Bob starts coming back every year. He says, I want to teach here. And he comes back to teach every semester. My dad asked him, he says, you're an insurance agent. What are you going to teach? He says, well, I can teach business. I can teach ethics. I know a lot about that. And I can teach Bible scripture memory. And he says, I'm a part of the navigators, and navigators love memorizing the Bible. So he starts to teach every semester. Bob isn't on campus for 2 weeks when everybody knows him because he's the most friendly guy you've ever met in your life. He asks the students every morning on their way into chapel. If a student chapel was at 7 a.m., by the way, and if they're coming in all groggy and sluggish, he would say, attitude check. He'd stand at the front door, and they had to say, praise Jesus this morning before they could get in. And Bob would ask every attitude check. Half the students, he'd ask that. And then in the afternoons, he would walk through the community getting his exercise. He'd walk 3 or 4 miles circling the community, and he knew everybody in our town of Yucaipa, every vendor, every market salesperson, every fruit sales lady. He knew them all by name because the light of Christ was shining so bright in him. If you're around Bob for 5 minutes, you're fired up about Jesus Christ. When the Civil War hit Liberia, our students scattered and went into hiding in the jungle, they said. And after the war, some of them came out with stories, and they said, we were in hiding with the people from our village. We didn't have a Bible, but we had memorized chapters and whole books of the Bible because of Bob. So we would teach the Bible as we recited Scripture. We could recite whole chapters to the people that were in hiding because of Bob. 27 years ago, Bob passed away. Before he left Earth for heaven, he gave a gift to African Bible colleges to their radio programs. 27 years ago, he left an endowment to support, because African Bible Colleges has radio stations in Liberia, Malawi, Uganda that broadcast the message of Jesus Christ across the continent. We've been doing that for 40 years. For the past 27 years ago, Bob gave that gift. Just last week, I found out, or this week, that Bob's endowment, in part, is still funding the radio stations across Africa. So do you get what I'm saying here? That for the last 27 years, the light of Christ has been shining across Africa because of one insurance sales agent from San Jose, California named Bob. Come on. How do you like that, church? Yeah. And I say that only to say that can be you. That can be your life. That's the way that Jesus Christ meant for you to shine. That's why I say this Christmas, make Jesus Christ the blazing center of your life every day. And you can do it in the most pedestrian way. Every day you have that chance. When you reconcile and forgive, the light of Jesus Christ shines brighter. When you praise a coworker behind their back, the light of Christ shines brighter. When you invite a new neighbor over for a barbecue, the light of Christ shines brighter. When you help an unemployed friend pay their rent, the light of Christ shines brighter. When you pray with your sons or daughters at night before they go to bed, the light of Christ shines brighter. This Christmas, I hope that the light of Jesus Christ is blazing in your life and in your home. I want to ask you to make a memory that sticks with your family this Christmas. We've left a sticker on your seat, and I want to invite you to write your family's name on here. It could be your name. It could be your family's name. And then I want to next ask if you would go and find a candle somewhere in the room. By the way, not the candle that is on your seat already. Leave that there. But we have candles up around the stage. We have candles on the back wall. And I want to invite you to take that sticker with your family's name on it and put it on here, and then light this candle as a representation that you want Jesus Christ to shine in your home. As you light this candle, would you say a prayer over your family, over your sons or your daughters, over your husband or your wife, that the blessing of Christ be on their lives? Pray it over your brothers or your sisters, your mother or your father. May Jesus Christ keep blazing in your home and your family this Christmas.